Opposing Gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about monaural cancellation. I'm wearing a hat, and this is something that is useful to me on the synthesis side. I don't totally understand it completely, but basically what it is you have two frequencies coming out, and they're at a ratio of 2 to 3. And whenever you're at a ratio of some sort, something like this, it's not a ratio that falls into a normal deal. Like a ratio that would enhance the saw wave is a ratio of like 1 to 2 or 2 to 4, which can be reduced to 1 to 2. So this sort of ratio follows the natural harmonic series. But if we do this middle ground thing, we actually get an extra tone, and there's some math involved that involves calculating an additional. There's reasons. They're like distortion products, and there's all this math involved. But basically, you get a very different sound. So if we were to play, and it's a tone that is generated as a result of doing a 2 to 3 ratio. So this is a 2 to 4 ratio. This is a 2 to 3 ratio. It has to do with both these channels being shoved down into one channel. So that sounds quite a bit crunchier, and that's because of that additional ratio. And we can actually influence how loud or soft that ratio is by simply changing the phase or the tone generated by those two, by changing the phase, trying to find a sweet spot. So if we play it, what we're doing is we're altering that middle tone that's being generated. We will not get the same effect if we do 2 to 4. Like, it sounds similar, but it's not got that same, like it formed a chord before. That's forming octaves, so it doesn't have the same effect. So it's a pretty interesting deal. I don't completely understand it. It gets even cooler if you do this in stereo, and you send one out the left and one out the right. So you've got one tone, this is the ratio 2 tone, and then the ratio 3 tone on the other side. And I'm doing this with saw waves because it's a lot easier to hear than with like square waves. I mean, not square waves, than with sine waves. So then you can hear it's like in the middle. It's like over here in my stereo field. It sounds like it's over here, this extra tone that's not there in the other ones. I'm willing to bet that has something to do with the 3 to 2, but I thought I'd share it with you because it's an interesting deal, and that's the name of the phenomenon. It still sounds like, well, it sounds like it's kind of over there now, I guess. But anyways, when you move it, you can hear that extra tone really easily, but it's not there. So it's kind of a cool deal. It's not the same thing as combination tones, because it has to do with the way the phase of these things are summed together and the fact that it's a ratio of 2 to 3. So it's separate from combination tones. It's not the same thing. So it's something that I stumbled across when I was doing some research, and I thought it was a cool principle I'd share with you. I was just like, man, that's weird. And I've looked at this before using ratios in FM synthesis that enhance a square wave series or for example, a saw wave series. So like it would make sense if we're doing a saw wave series to be like, hey, it's 1 to 2 and then 1 to 3 because we're doing 3 times. So it makes sense to do something like this, you know, and then the resultant wave you get this is sort of additive, but it like makes sense that you do that. And then if you were to do like emphasize a square wave series with additional tones generating their own series, like we could use a bunch of, what did I put this on, 4? It needs to be on 5. This should be on 7. And then we would put these all on the same ideally. And then you could combine various sine waves. And it gets really interesting because if you do this, you will theoretically, you could pick waves with different overtone series, and then you could influence the way these things sum together. It was a more complicated thing I was looking at. But you see you get like a square wave emphasis, like these weird resonances, comb filtering sort of effect. But if we were to do that go back just by changing the ratio to a regular saw wave ratio, get this. So it's just an interesting deal. And that sort of falls in the same category, only it's basically saying if we have a ratio of 2 to 3 in there, which we do have naturally occurring in here, we can influence that extra tone that's brought out in this series by changing the phase, the angle, the phase angle. And we get really extreme control over it. And it's called a monaural cancellation because it's being summed down. Now, if we did this in stereo, as soon as we toss stereo into this, things begin to change more. And that's the part where I get a little lost when I'm reading some of these articles. And then we have a 4, and we could put out 5 and a ratio of 2. So 4 is 2 times 2. So a ratio of 2 to 3, this would be 4 to 6 then. And we put that out, the other way. Oh, you see, now this is just a single tone. So I want to keep it solid just to keep the same series being emphasized over and over. So the cancellations will happen. As soon as I toss sideways into this, I'm going to start talking about all sorts of other madness. But now we're emphasizing 2 tones, but they're at different ratios. So like this ratio, and then this ratio is twice that ratio. Whoa, this should be a 6. That should not be a 5. So 4 to 2 and 2 to 3. So my idea is the tone generated from these two is going to be, this is essentially going to be 1 octave up from that tone. So it should enhance the sound. Like, I don't know. It's a weird thing I was thinking about. So it's very interesting. As far as critical listening goes, I just wanted to share with you as a principle something that's sort of interesting you can mess with. And it's very useful for creating, big, lush lead sounds when having layers that work really cohesively together. If you have any questions, let me know. I don't know what I'd really say to them. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.